We've got a few more people hopping in. Happy Wednesday again. Every third Wednesday is turning into my favorite time of each of these months. So Christine, it's good to see you. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Good. All right,
I have to duck out about 5 minutes before the end because I have a client.
Well, we have the best part to last, so you're just gonna have to.
Oh shoot!
Hey Terry, how are you? Good to see you.
Terry, hi Christina.
Are we making something good for lunch today?
We're not at lunch yet. We're just kind of unpacking because we're just back from vacation.
Oh, happy return from vacation. How fun is that?
Yes.
I'm good to see you. All right, Jason's the mystery man. We'll give it another minute. I know people are rolling in from meetings to meetings. So, so who is stressed out like crazy right now and can't wait to hear this stuff? Is it just me that's feeling super stressed today, or is it anybody else? No, Jim, you're not stressed? Full cucumber.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't forget you're on mute. Because like, a little bit. So we've had no tech issues today. So knock on wood, it stays that way.
Do you want me to share my screen now?
We'll give it a second.
Okay.
And, you know, so just for a minute.
Okay.
Let's see if we've got anybody else rolling in a minute or two, and then we'll get started. We usually have people rolling in 5 or 10 minutes late, usually running from meeting to meeting. It's all good.
Yeah, Wednesday tends to be an all meeting day.
Is there any day that's not an all meeting day, I wonder? Sometimes I look at my calendar and I'm like, oh yeah, where's that work stuff gonna actually happen, right? When does that creep in? So that's where Kelly comes in. I was like, Kelly, help. So, all right, so why don't we go ahead and get started? I know I'm even seeing some new people registering as it's coming through. So we'll have a few more people, I'm sure, but welcome to our next topic, which I love, which is really talking about not just coping with stress, not just managing stress, but actually mastering stress and getting it to the point where we can take control of it for our own lives. And so I have got a fantastic guest with us today. Ruvi and I were introduced by a mutual colleague friend, and it's been amazing. We immediately fangirled over each other, like most of my guests that I bring to you. That's usually how that happens. And she was talking and sharing where her passion and energy is in terms of helping people really have that balanced life. And I was like, you know what? The CWC community is pretty stressed out on a regular basis. So I thought it would be great to bring Ruvi in, share some of your secrets. And we also have a very interesting and unique first time offer to run by you guys at the end of this program as well. So make sure you stay tuned for our latest brainchild. So Ruvi, welcome. Thank you for being here. And I'm happy to turn it over to you to help us figure out how to put stress in a box.
Oh, thank you, Tammy, and welcome to everyone. And before we jump in, I am curious if you don't mind sharing in the chat, where's everyone located right now?
Oh, you know, I'm in Belize.
That's right.
Where do we got? Let's see.
New York, okay. Baltimore. Oh. Yeah, Belize. Okay, great. I always like to find out where people are from because, oh, hi, Elisa. Thanks for joining us.
She's the one who connected Ruvi and I, by the way. So yeah, she's here to see the magic behind the introduction.
Well, good morning. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. And a big thank you to Tammy for hosting and to Kelly for doing the behind the scenes technical, stuff to get us all here today. Really appreciate it. So today we are going to be talking about managing stress and thriving without sacrificing your health. As Tammy mentioned, this is something that I am so passionate about. In fact, when I get started, I'm glad Tammy's here and I'm glad I have my alarm clock because when I get started, I can talk for hours because this is something that I'm really, really strongly passionate about. But in this hour that we have, we're just going to dive into stress, defining stress so that you can start identifying it either in yourself or in the people around you. We'll also talk about the importance of the stress cycle and burnout to the different stages of burnout, as well as solutions. And as Tammy mentioned, we'll also share some support, some additional support that we will be providing. Because the goal is to hopefully get you from this to, a calmer state, most of the time, if that. And so how does that sound?
I think that sounds wonderful. I know a lot of other people are on mute, but I do feel like the first dog some days, right? So
Right, exactly. And so you've probably heard, especially from 2020 onwards, you might have heard the saying, the same storm, different boat. So I would love for everyone to just share in the chat, what is the one thing that is stressing you today? When you think of stress, what is that one thing that comes to mind right away? Money, yes, always money, family, money. To-do list, yeah, balancing commitments, yeah. Lack of time, very true. Everything is a priority, very, very true. And so as you can see, we are all located in different areas and all of us have some sort of stress, and that's why we can never say, or we can never judge that someone shouldn't, or they probably don't have stress because they grew up here, or they have this job, or they have this lifestyle, because nobody is immune to stress. And so all of us deal with stress in some capacity, but it's the way that we process the stress daily, and it's the way that we actually acknowledge how stress is impacting us that can make a big difference. And so a case study for you. We have a man, he's 48 years old. He's an entrepreneur, he's fit, he's healthy, he's active, he's a husband and a father. Then we have a woman, she's 38, she's working 2 jobs, she's got 2 kids, she's fit and active. What do you think they have in common? You can feel free to unmute or pop it in the chat. What do you think they have in common? Stress, parenting, yes. Anything else? One last guess. Fitness, yes. Healthy and fit, exactly. So both of them had a stroke last year, both separate occasions. And I share this example because sometimes we think, oh, because I exercise and eat healthy, I'm fine. Or sometimes we even think, because I'm an entrepreneur, I love my job, I'm working my passion. I could not be burnt out. I'm not stressed. But no, actually, burnout can show itself in so many different professions, whether you're working for yourself, you're working for a company, even if you're taking care of loved ones, maybe you're working from home. And another thing too, sometimes when we are fit and active, we actually miss the signs because we think we're checking off all the boxes. So again, it's so, so important for us to start listening to how stress is showing up in our body, and to start being honest with ourselves about the stress that we're facing every day, and how we can start mitigating what we are dealing with on a daily basis. And just to give you a quick overview, so I'm Ruvi Makuni and I'm a corporate wellness specialist. And I originally started off as a fitness trainer in 2015. And I was really doing in-home personal training for busy professionals. And what I soon noticed was that, my clients were very successful, climbing up the corporate ladder. But I noticed there was a lack of differentiation between work and home life. Even as they're squatting and doing our exercises, maybe they were emailing their, assistant to get something done right away. I also noticed there was that lack of a sense of constant urgency, sense of constant perfectionism, and a sense of just overwhelm and stress. And then a red flag for me was that a lot of my clients had health issues, whether it was digestive issues, constant acid reflux, back problems, migraines. And I knew right away that part of the reason was the stress and overwhelm. Because I'll mention too that during this time, I also had a corporate 9-to-5 job as well. So I know it's very, very challenging sometimes to juggle, to try take a break at lunchtime, but let's say you have a meeting, or if you're expected to email after hours, it can be very challenging. So it was really during this time that I really decided to focus my attention more on introducing wellness programs, more specifically stress mastery programs to the corporate world, because as you've probably heard, we spend the first half of our lives sacrificing or compromising our health to gain wealth, and the second half of our lives spending our wealth to regain health. And so my goal is
go back for a second and just let people sit with that. This is actually the first time I've seen it this way. So just give us a minute to dig into this for a minute. And just in the chat window, is this new news for anyone? I mean, I see it and I'm like, oh, that makes sense, but I've never thought of it this way. How about anybody in the chat window? Is this an aha moment for you?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yep. All right. Didn't mean to interrupt, but that was too good to
that was
pass by.
great.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, hang on, hit the
Thank you.
rewind button on that one, please. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, Alyssa, this is the third time you're seeing this in 24 hours. Huh. Yeah. So yes, so the goal here is for all of us, and especially my goal is to empower professionals to thrive in their careers without sacrificing their health. Because as we know, stress can ripple into all areas of our lives. And it's also important, a top question I keep hearing from parents is, my teenager is stressed, my 8-year-old is stressed. In fact, a client that's now working with me, for stress management coaching, she reached out to me because her 8-year-old daughter shouted out to her, "Mom, why are you always stressed and angry?" And that was a very jarring moment for her because, research actually shows that I believe at the age of 14, that's when habits are imprinted. So if we can start showing the younger generation healthy ways to cope with stress, and also, emphasizing that stress is a part of life, but there is a healthy way to manage stress, that will also help the next generation. And have you ever had to rush a pet, your fur babies, to the vet during a stressful time in your life? And if you think back, if there's been a time when you're like, oh, I can't believe I have to now, this is happening now. Believe it or not, research is starting to show that when pet owners are are dealing with chronic stress, that can also impact their pets. And if you notice, they tend to cuddle up to us sometimes when we're in a state of constant stress. Okay, so let's just quickly define stress. So stress is the body's natural response to change, and it's really an unavoidable part of life. We have acute stress and then we have chronic stress. Short-term stress, this is infrequent, manageable. This is our body's way of protecting us, that fight or flight reaction. This gives us motivation to take action when we're either under threat, and it can help us, potentially get through a situation. For example, presenting, as I'm presenting now, you could say I'm under acute stress, but it's starting to subside. And plus it will be over when we're done as well. But chronic stress, this is if acute stress isn't managed well and occurs for an extended period of time. This is when chronic stress becomes detrimental to our health. It's constant. It tends to impact our mood, our relationships, our quality of time, our productivity as well. And as you can imagine, some examples of chronic stress, a pandemic, a difficult job, chronic disease, death, divorce. These are all prolonged situations where we could be under stress.
So I'm curious to see how many people here, just put a 1 in the chat window, have one of those things that are going on in your life right now. I mean, we all know we have one, right? We're still recovering from the pandemic, but just where are you in terms of, you know, having these chronic stressful moments in your world?
One, yeah.
Anybody else there? Yeah. Right. Seeing a lot of ones, right? I know I'm like, ooh, check, check, check.
Yeah.
So yes, looking at a lot of those options, it's like, oh yeah, there's definitely a few of those on my boxes too, right? So I think it's important to remember that these are things that are outside of our control, and we may think we have it handled, but we don't. And I think, Ruby, that's what you're about ready to talk about next.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it's, you know, one thing with the problem with constant chronic stress is that over a prolonged period of time, this can definitely start to wear on our body. It's a long-term drain on the body. And it's so, so important for us to actually start identifying what the stress cycle is and breaking that stress cycle. So picture this, if we have a marathon runner, let's say they start in the morning, you know, they start running their race. They take a few hours, you know, to complete their race. Then after the race, they decide, you know what, there's a 5K down the road. I'm going to go and run that 5K as well. And they, you know, he goes over, runs the 5K race. After that 5K decides, you know what, I'm going to maybe take a bike ride because I'm feeling I can do it. I can push through. Takes a bike ride. They may be at night, decides to stay up late watching TV and maybe, you know, eating pizza, not getting enough sleep. So maybe one day that might work. Maybe his body might be like, okay, he might be a little sore the next day. But if he does that one day, 2 days, 3 days, all week, constant, can you imagine how much wear and tear that would be on his body? Any runners? Yeah. So that, if you picture our everyday life, you know, we get up in the morning, we rush out, you know, we jump out of bed as soon as the alarm clock goes off. We're rushing out the door into traffic. We get to work. We're dealing with the stresses of work, rushing back through traffic, rushing back at home. And then, you know, you're dealing with whatever situation you've got at home. So that's sort of how, you know, our body is under constant wear and tear. And if you think about it, now, if Tammy, let's take Tammy for example. Back in the olden days, if Tammy was walking down in the village, let's say, and then she encountered a lion, for example, Tammy automatically would either fight or flight. So Tammy, let's say
Tammy would be lion lunch. She
Tammy
can't run
would
very fast. She's definitely out of luck.
Tammy would most likely take flight, you know, and at this point, her sympathetic system kicks into gear. Now, when that happens, that's when your body is designed to deal with the stressor. You know, that's normal. We have an amazing body. We have two systems that will, you know, that helps us deal and fight and deal with the stresses that we are facing. So Tammy runs and she's running away from this lion. The resources of her body have been diverted away from the rest and digest system. So things like digestion, you know, things like our rest and digest system. This is where you know, our immune system is actually developed or strengthened, you know, when our parasympathetic system is activated. But if Tammy is running away, your body's resources are solely focused on helping Tammy get away from the lion. So
and not be lion lunch. That's right.
Right. So Tammy gets to you know, her village, and her family sees that she needs that support. She needs the help. They rally around her. They maybe scare away the lion or fight off the lion, but at the end of the day, Tammy is safe. Keyword, Tammy is safe. She feels supported. Her community rallied around her. it will take some time to maybe calm down a little bit. Maybe at night they'll celebrate that Tammy's okay, but Tammy feels safe. Her body feels safe. So now what happens? Her parasympathetic system can kick in. Now her rest and digest system kicks in. But the problem now is that our day, our lives have changed, evolved over time. And so we are constantly, if your threat is maybe something that you have to face at work every day, in a meeting or at home, or anything that you might perceive to be a threat, and you're not processing that constantly every day, then we are not breaking that stress cycle. And then what happens is that accumulation of stressors or traumas, however they define, get stored in our body, and eventually we start to see it in our body. So 80% of us are operating in fight or flight. This is when people start to feel tired, stressed, maybe experiencing weight gain or weight loss. We want to, majority of the time, function or be in a state of rest and digest, so that we can be more calm and balanced as well, and we can feel more healthier as well. Does that make sense? Yeah, so if we're in that constant stress, if we're not breaking the stress cycle, this will tend to weaken our immune system. That creates that wear and tear in our body, in our organ systems as well. And one thing I'll share with you is one common symptom, thank you, Elisa. So one common, digestion is a common issue with a lot of my clients, in the country in general. So think about this concept. If you sit down to eat and you're watching news or you're emailing or you're in a stress state, your body already, you can probably tell that your stomach is tense, and you might be tense already. So you're not really focusing on your food. Your body is not even primed or ready to digest your food. So then what happens? Doctors are starting to really dive into the connection between our gut and our mind. Also, if your body is not in a state to digest our food, nutrients aren't absorbed. Guess what happens when our nutrients aren't absorbed? We feel fatigue. That causes other issues, whether it's headaches, and it's a domino effect of symptoms that can start to happen as well. Gut dysbiosis, IBS, all sorts of digestive issues. And not to mention the fact that when you don't, anytime you eat, you feel stressed. That's a stressor, that's a threat, and then it starts to impact our mood. So it's really important, if at the very least when we're eating, to even turn off the distractions and to calm down, and even do a bit of breath work, which we'll talk about in a little bit, just to get our body calmed down and in a state of rest and ready to digest. Okay. Anyone have any, do you notice times when you feel stressed and you eat, how you feel afterwards? No one to share? Yeah, we feel cramps for sure, definitely. If never really paid attention. Yeah. So maybe sometime now as you're eating, especially because oftentimes, we eat our meals within 5 to 10 minutes, and our meals are actually supposed to last about 20 minutes or so that we can actually process our food. Okay. My screen is not moving. Oh, there it is. Okay. So the point here is that it's important to process our stress daily, not waiting until the weekend, not waiting until a crisis happens, not waiting until vacation, but just finding those micro moments daily to process our stress. And preventing burnout, I really, really wanted to stress today how you can identify the different stages of burnout, so that you don't get to the stage where you experiencing burnout, and or if you can identify burnout in maybe some of your coworkers or your friends or family members. And burnout, it's a state of emotional, mental, physical exhaustion that occurs when we feel overwhelmed by too many demands and too few resources. So get ready for the next slide. See if you can identify what stage you are in. Let me put them all up. Just give you a moment. Okay, yeah. Now you can keep it private. I know sometimes this can be something private for people, but if you, do you identify yourself in any of these? If anyone wants to maybe share or know anyone that, you know, might be in a stage of stage 4 or 5. Between 4 and 5, yes. Well, hopefully what I'll share in a little bit will start to help you move to, you know, stage 3 and 2. For sure. Tend to vacillate, yeah. And to give you, you know, a real life example of what burnout looks like, this is when, you know, you get up in the morning and actually without an alarm clock, you can't really get up. And the moment you get out of bed, you're exhausted, even though you've probably, you know, you've supposedly slept, you're feeling exhausted and you're sort of dragging through the day and you're really relying on coffee or any energy drink to sort of get you through the day. And then your mood, you know, you feel down, you feel either overwhelmed or underappreciated. Any effort that you put towards your job or anything around you just seems futile. And you just, you know, you're lacking, you don't lack joy. Maybe you might be more irritable and you just don't care. You know, at 3 o'clock, you hit that energy slump. Maybe after work, you're so fatigued. And then you have the monkey mind going on at night that you can't even sleep. And every day it just seems like the same. And what will happen eventually, you know, I've seen people literally can't get out of bed for maybe 2 weeks up to 2 months. And this is what happens when we reach burnout. And it can happen to anyone. So if we're starting to see those signs or those symptoms, it's really, really important to start paying attention and not just push through. Okay. All right, and then finally, before we dive into what we can start doing about it, please do take a moment to look here and see if you are experiencing any of these physical signs. Because the one thing that we have is our body. Our body is constantly sending us messages. There's this workshop I did a few years ago where I talked about if you're having chest pains, neck pains, don't ignore it. I met a woman a year later who then thanked me because she had been having chest pains. And after our workshop, she went to the doctor and they had to rush her to the ER. So if you're having any symptoms, please just take a note. Mental signs and then behavioral signs as well. Okay. So now we get to the fun part. This is where we get to take control. I know I laid, you know, some heavy info there, but the good news is that there are things that we can start to do right away. And the truth is, you know, while we can't eliminate stress from our lives, we can definitely mitigate its effects on our own physical and mental health, you know, by using the management techniques that I will be sharing now. Okay, so the goal is to create your stress mental health Toolbox. Again, not waiting until the crisis, because actually it's when we explore when things are calm, that's actually more beneficial, because you get used to what works for you. You start building your own go-to habits and tools that you can lean on when you are in those moments of stress. So the first thing is awareness. Reflect today. Are you in survival mode? If nothing changes, how will you feel 3, 6, 12 months from now? What is the one thing that's just causing unnecessary stress for you that you can just let go of, that you need to let go of? That one thing that's coming up right now for you. It could be a commitment. It could be a task. It could be, maybe switching jobs. Yeah. So Tammy, if there's one thing that you would need to let go of today, what would you say that would be?
Oh, that's a good question. I wasn't ready for that pop quiz. Let me think. The one thing I need to let go of to alleviate stress is unrealistic timelines. So I believe that everything can be done in 5 minutes or less. And then when they're not, and so I plan accordingly. And surprise, surprise, it doesn't work out that way. And then of course, all the stress comes in from that, right? So I think, in terms of realizing that, being able to prioritize a little bit better and letting go of the things that aren't as critical, I think is probably where my opportunity to alleviate some stressors and self-induced stressors, shall I say, in my space.
Yes, exactly. Because the more that we can actually start to look at the unnecessary things that are taking up, and we all have an energy budget. So using our energy and allocating our energy accordingly, towards things that actually matter or bring us joy or that require more of our energy. Then if there are other things that are just drainers, those are things that we can start to let go of.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. I just popped that in the chat window too for everybody to see it, but using your energy budget. I know that, there are certain things that I have to do that I'm just not good at. Right. And that's why I'm so glad Elisa's here, because she's good at all the things I'm not. Right. So when I'm stuck to do things myself, which is always tech related, I know that that's not something that comes naturally to me. It's not something that's easy, and it takes a lot of energy. And so to alleviate the stress and not have that little, spiral of just complete, death and disaster. I know that I've got to do the hard stuff early in the morning. Because that's when my energy budget is full, right? My tank is full and I've got the best chance of success. So anytime I've got something that's hard or something that's creative that I need to really have that time for, I usually do that in the mornings, and I've got clients who are night owls. And so their energy budget isn't very much in the morning. Don't ask them for anything meaningful before 10 a.m., but you get them at 11 o'clock at night and they're rock stars. And so that's when they do their hard work. But I do think that concept of realizing we've got an energy budget and that life will always ask us to spend more than we have, then that is really where a lot of these stressors come into play too. So.
Yes, and exactly knowing where your zone of, your time zone of genius is, so to speak, and also delegating, asking for help. But that's very important, structuring your day and time so that your energy is better utilized. So that is key. And understanding that you need rest, you can't be on all the time. So you need to incorporate that rest as well. So in gaining awareness, identify your personal triggers and your subconscious stress response so that you can really experiment with methods that are good for you, that you can customize for you, that are the best approach for you. Because for someone, maybe meditation is a great option. But, for someone else, perhaps taking a walk is a better option. So it's really important to know what is your default response when you're under stress. And sometimes it can be a blend, but oftentimes we tend to lean towards one more than the other. So for example, if you tend to notice that uh, the fight response is your default. Maybe your heart's racing, you get that adrenaline rush. Maybe you get angry, you yell, you slam things. A healthier way to deal with that stress might be lifting weights or exercising, maybe screaming or punching a pillow or cold showers as well. Maybe if flight is your response, perhaps you feel anxious, worried, you overthink, maybe you withdraw, you ignore. Some deep belly breathing or power walk, or even, shaking your body or dancing and grounding. Those might be healthier ways as well to deal with the stress as well. Freeze, if you tend to shut down or zone out or lack that motivation, or you become that couch potato, deep belly breathing, conscious body check-in, grounding, maybe dancing, listening to soft stress relief music might be better as well. And fawn, people pleasing, you become overwhelmed, codependent. And what happens if you're constantly saying yes, constantly pleasing others, you become stressed because you're overcommitted and you tend to become more resentful as well. So a better option would be setting boundaries, communicating your needs appropriately as well. Okay,
So I'm curious in the chat window here, which one of the four are you? Are you fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? Or which ones are you? I think I bounce between flight and freeze. I mean, couch potato and punching a pillow, right? So yeah, Terry and I are very much alike. So I'm just curious to see what you guys are, right? Yeah. Okay, while those responses are coming in, let's keep going, Ruby, because I know I want to be sensitive of time.
Okay, observe your thoughts. The mind is its own place, and it can make a hell of a heaven or a heaven of a hell. It's so important for us to master our automatic negative thoughts, because if we don't, sometimes we create scenarios which end up causing more stress than is actually present. So for example, let's say you emailed a potential client and you expected to hear back right away, and 2 hours later, you're still waiting. Now, if maybe those automatic negative thoughts start coming into play, maybe you're thinking, oh, I probably lost this client. She probably doesn't think I'm good at my job. She probably doesn't like me. My team will think I'm a failure if I don't get this client. Why am I always struggling? So you're creating stress, you're becoming anxious because you're fearing the future that hasn't happened yet. And most likely the rest of the day is going to be stressful for you. Another example, maybe you're stuck in traffic and now the thought is, I need to be at this meeting. If I miss it, I'll be fired. This can't happen to me now. This is terrible for my career. Everything is always falling apart. No one knows how to drive properly, so creating those scenarios. And yes, again, you're feeling stressed, you're anxious, you're fearful, you're angry. And during this time, you may even miss a solution, perhaps taking an exit, perhaps slowing down. You may even have an accident. And the key thing to remember is our internal words, our self-judgment to the things that we say about ourselves, our interpretation of situations. These can actually put us in that fight or flight stressful state. So if we ruminate on past or potential future trauma, your body will still have that same response as though it's happening now. And then what ends up happening is that we miss those moments. We end up living in the conditionally. If you get a promotion and someone says, hey, great job in the promotion, then our default is constantly, yeah, but, I didn't get the raise that I wanted. Great job on your business. Yeah, but it's not doing as well as I would have thought. And so if we're constantly fearing the future, or we are constantly regretting the past, and we're living today as though the fearful future has happened, or we're constantly thinking about the past, then we're constantly stressed. Can you see that? If we're not living in the present moment, next time you're talking to your spouse or even petting your dog, are you in the moment? Or are you worried about yesterday? Or are you worried about tomorrow? Or are you worried about what you didn't do and accomplish? So if we're not living in the present moment, or if we're fearful, constantly living in fear, we are constantly putting ourselves under constant stress.
Ruby, there's an interesting book, and when you were talking about the lion lunch story earlier today, it made me think of it. And the name of the book is Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And it talks about, just in the animal kingdom, how, okay, a lion's going after a zebra for lunch, right? And that zebra, before that lion came, was just eating grass, happy as can be, runs like hell for as long as it needs to make sure it doesn't turn into lion lunch, and then goes back to eating grass. He's not worried about, oh my God, where's the lion? Is he coming back again? What about tomorrow? And so that concept of, being present is so true. And I just thought that was an interesting correlation to the lion story that you had earlier today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Tammy, because especially now in our current, in our world today, we are bombarded with so many things, headlines.
Everything is doomsday, right? The fear mongering is insane. Yeah,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be really conscious about deciphering how we're going to interpret and process everything that's coming into our world.
Yeah.
There's sure, be informed about what's going on in the world, but not consumed, and even release situations, release things, maybe even sometimes relationships, that cause you stress as well. And so the central principle of mastering stress is to master your thoughts, thinking and perception about life, work, stresses, or events. Now, I always start talking about being mindful of thoughts. I want to make it clear that this is not easy. For a lot of us, we've had the same beliefs and habits for a long time. So it's not something that will change overnight. It's not easy. However, it's important, because if you're taking a lovely walk, but you're constantly thinking about or worrying, then that you're not going to be in a calm state. So take this journey and see where it leads you. The best place to start is start observing your thoughts on a daily basis. Even as you're sitting now, what are you thinking? So thoughts can cause your feelings both positive and negative, and don't allow those ants to live rent-free in your brain. Stay connected to the present moment and manage expectations. And, view challenges as an opportunity for growth. Instead of looking at the worst case scenario, how about what's the worst that would happen if we actually think this could be the best thing that could happen, or even think of a positive outcome as well. And more importantly, have self-compassion. Can we all agree that we are all doing the best we can?
I think yes. Everybody answer that in the chat window, so that way we get everybody back engaged again, right? But I don't know anybody who's not, no, I'm mailing it in,
Yeah, we're all simply doing the best we can. And sometimes we are our worst critics. And so, be your champion, be your 24-hour champion versus your 24-hour bully. So be your cheerleader, be yourself cheerleader as well. So over the next week, observe your thoughts, the next week and beyond, but try and start observing your thoughts. Challenge your thinking, manage your expectations of yourself and others as well. And one way to start, challenging your thoughts, for example, if you're in traffic and you say, everyone can't drive, ask, is this true? Is this story I'm telling myself true? And question the busyness. Sometimes we put so much on our plate just so it can be a distraction from what we're actually supposed to, and something that's important for us to start actually taking a deeper look into and start letting go of. Okay, so live for today. The past is heavy. put it down. You know, the coulda, woulda, shoulda, all we have today is today. So some tools that can help you really stay in the moment is this great app. It's called I Am. It sends wonderful, you know, little positive sayings throughout the day. You know, sometimes you just need a pick me up. So it's I Am. There's also Day One, stress relief music. A lot of my clients, even, you know, in corporations, they're starting to play, if it's allowed, you know, some stress relief music as well. That helps sort of calm your mind. Now, the third thing is decluttering the mind. This is so helpful, especially if you have trouble falling asleep, or if you're constantly anxious or worrying about, you know, the future, or just really feeling overwhelmed. Find yourself a piece of, if you have a journal, great, but grab a piece of paper, a notebook. It doesn't have to be perfect. Grab a pen and just scribble down everything that's on your mind. Your worries, your to-dos, your challenges, just keep going. When you do a brain dump, it's literally releasing your mind of the, you know, the mind chatter. And what I love about the brain dump is that once you actually do, you know, you release, give yourself time, sometimes 5-10 minutes, take a deep breath. And when you look at everything that you've put on the paper, you can start to see, you know, maybe there's some things that that are out of your control. Zoom in on what's in your control. This is what we call the circle of control exercise. You know, maybe even circle what's in your control. What can you do today? What can you do tomorrow? If there are things on your list that are not in your control and that you can't physically do anything about today, for example, let's say economy or, you know, politics or war, if there's nothing that you can physically do about it today, use your energy to focus on what you can do today. And by doing this every day, it gives you more control. It releases your mind, and it's really, it's very therapeutic as well to release that stress from your mind. Did you
I love that, because there's so much background noise in the things that we're stressed over. And so that circle exercise definitely helps put things in perspective.
Yes, if you can brain dump daily or at least weekly, you can also do a professional brain dump as well. So you can do, you know, an overall brain dump and a professional brain dump, which is very helpful at the end of the day if you find it tough to switch off from work. Doing that professional brain dump gives you an idea of what needs to be done, what still needs to be done. Then you can set a plan for the next morning of what to, you know, how to structure your day, you know, as Tammy mentioned earlier, allocating your energy to the top tasks.
Great. I know we've got a few more minutes left, Ruvi. So what are your last thoughts in terms of giving us things to do before we can open it up for Q&A?
Yes, so body scan, check in every day. Check in, what is your body telling you? Are you feeling tense in your chest? Are you feeling tense in your gut? Do you have a tightness in your back? I'll tell you now that the common things that I see a lot is, you know, tension in your stomach, also lower back issues. A lot of times when you're going through a stressful period, those are the two areas, but there are definitely other things such as migraines, hives, so many things that can be caused by stress. But every day, do a check-in. What is your body telling you? Okay, and then I wanted to take everyone through a very quick breath practice that you can do every day. Is that okay, Tammy? Do we still have time?
Yep, we're good.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you can join me in a quick breath work here, just shake your shoulders out. Exhale. Okay, and if you would like, if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. Okay, place your right hand on your heart and your left hand on your stomach. All right, and just quickly check in right now. How is your heart? You know, is it beating fast? Do you feel tension in your chest? Tightness in your neck? You're just going to take a deep breath in for 4 seconds, and we'll hold for 4. And I'll count it up. Inhale for 4. And hold. And exhale. And hold. And inhale. Hold. And exhale. And last time, inhale. And exhale. Okay, so the breath is the easiest thing that we have at our toolbox. You know, whether it's before bed, you've had a tough day, if you need to step away before you say something you're going to regret, you know, if you're in that stressful moment, lean on the breath work and make your breaths that deep belly breathing, you know, where your stomach expands. So, you know, you can use that anywhere. It's the #1 tool that can, it's actually called, we refer to it as a remote control, where you can switch from, you know, it's almost like switching from a thriller movie to a channel that's playing, that has comedy. So use your breath work. And if you have a hard time sort of, you know, if the counting makes you anxious, you can also use this technique. It's the 5-finger breathing technique. This also helps you come back into your body if you're feeling as though things are out of control. So, so Tammy, why don't we open it up for Q&A?
Yep, that sounds great. So, so if you can stop sharing, Ruvi, because I've got our special offer that I want to share with the group. And then I know, Kelly, we've got a few questions that were pre-submitted, but I'd love to hear the questions live in the group too, before we go, if there are any. So I love Ruvi's work in terms of how she really helps people not only just assess where you are with your stress, but really come up with practical techniques you can start to use right away today as you move on. And so what we've decided to do is we have joined forces, and we are offering a Leading Through Stress program that is the first time ever that we've done something jointly. And I want to share with you what this looks like, because you guys are going to get the first look at it, and a special bonus if you decide that this is something that you want to use as a tool to help you manage stress more effectively. So we've created the Stress Mastery Program, which is a blend of looking at where you are in terms of your stress levels, learning how to manage that, but then there's that added component of how is stress impacting you as a leader? How is it impacting your career, the decisions that you make, how you show up for your team, you know, all of those types of things. So we want to work with you to help you really get clear on how this is showing up for you and get to the other side, to where you are thriving and you're able to really get stress contained and mastered in all aspects of your life, and realize that you are not as good at keeping things compartmentalized as you think you are. And if you're like, oh, I'm going to leave this at home and leave this in the office and leave it from there, it's not going to work. So we're offering this program. What it includes is it's 2 assessments. So you get a risk assessment on your stress level, so you know exactly where you are. You'll get a leadership assessment, so you know that in times of calm, where your authentic best self is. You'll get a bunch of reports and tools to use, and 2 hours of coaching, an hour with Ruvi and an hour with myself, to make sure that you have everything that you need to be successful and manage through times of stress. Because let's face it, things are not going to get any easier in the near term. And so these are tools that you definitely want to have. I know Kelly is putting, oh, Kelly, you're reading my mind, baby. Thank you. So Kelly has the link in there now. You can go ahead and, you know, click on that now, but this coupon code will be available for the 10% off as a fast action bonus until 1 p.m. tomorrow. So you have 24 hours to decide that this is something that you want to take advantage of. I would love for you guys to be a part of our, you know, our first go at working together and really bringing this 1-2 punch to our client base to help them manage and really, you know, thrive and get through these stressful moments. So I'm excited to share that with you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and let's all come off of mute and, you know, get on video if you are in a good position to do so. And who has any questions? So if we've got questions in the room, we'll go ahead and field those first. So you can either come off of mute or pop them in the chat window, whatever's easier. And Kelly, do you want to get us kicked off on one before? Yeah.
So what are some ways, Ruvi, that companies can support their employees? That's one of the questions.
Great question. So for any leaders, definitely leading by example, taking breaks, encouraging your team to take, those 5-minute breaks, encouraging your team to take lunch breaks even. But when people actually see that their leaders and managers are actually taking breaks, believe it or not, that sends a great message that it's okay to take breaks. And also, communication, checking in with your team, especially now. A lot of people are really struggling. A lot of people are struggling in silence. So having those open communication moments, whether it's each supervisor sets a time to check in with everyone, or creates a safe space too, if people feel that they can express their needs as well, and assessments to find out how people are feeling and what their needs and what their needs are right now.
Great. And I also, I think those are awesome points, Ruvi. And that leading by example is huge. Because if you're on vacation and working on vacation and you tell your people, oh, you're not supposed to work on vacation, of course they're going to work on vacation. If you're sending emails at 11 o'clock at night, they're going to feel the need to respond no matter what you have to say. And so I think those things are really important to realize, that how you respond in your everyday is how the organization is going to emulate your behavior. So you definitely want to keep an eye on that.
Yes, and the time urgency, there's this constant need, or this constant, one of the top stressors actually in companies is this constant, I need this now, or even not even stating it, but the
unassumed or the unstated expectation, right? So
exactly. Yeah. So steady, and this is where communication and leadership comes into play as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we tend to try not to get too personal with our teams. And this is the right time to lean in, right? If you see somebody is not acting right in terms of they're usually bulletproof and they're missing deadlines, or, they're usually calm and, they're short-tempered, don't ignore it.
Yeah.
Right? Bring them in, have a conversation, because usually people don't turn on a dime just for fun. Right? There are things going on and they may not be comfortable saying what's going on because it can be personal, but knowing that, hey, if you need some extra space, you got it. And, you don't need to share all your secrets with me, but know that we have your back. And I think that's important. So, Kelly,
it goes back to that community feel that we spoke about before, because if we're spending, majority of our lives in the workplace and we don't feel safe, we don't feel secure, then of course we're constantly in that chronic stress. So now we have to create ways, especially after the last 2 years, we have to create new ways for people to feel safe and secure in the workplace.
That's right. So we have time for one more question. Is there anybody in the room that has a question? If not, we'll go to one other one that was pre-submitted.
Yeah, this one's pretty good. So, and this actually could have just been written for me. So I am a people pleaser, and that's what they're saying. They're a people pleaser, and it's challenging for them to say no. Can so relate. So what are some tips for people like us to be able to set some boundaries?
Oh, great question. So first thing is setting your non-negotiable personal time, whatever that means for you, whether it's after 6 o'clock, that's your time, weekends, that's your time. And being intentional about that is your time to do whatever it is you want to do for yourself. Now, when we say, when we want to move to, saying no, that's challenging if you're a people pleaser. But maybe you can move towards saying statements such as, for example, if I say, Kelly, I need to speak to you at 1 o'clock, and you just don't want to do it, or you using statements such as, well, let me check my calendar and I'll get back to you. Let me check my schedule and I'll get back to you. This separates you from the situation. It gives you time to actually assess, is this something I want to do? It gives you time to check your schedule too. Do you really have the time to do that? So, separating yourself there and practicing on the people that love and care about you, and so that you get that motivation to start saying no. But the key thing is that energy budget and being really in tune with yourself. And, do you have the energy? Is this going to bring you joy? Is this just going to add more stress to you?
Right. And that kind of goes back to what Tammy was talking about, the energy bank. So maybe it's something that doesn't really fit right now. Maybe there's a better time, for me to approach that. So that's brilliant.
Exactly. And most people now, I think, are really starting to understand when people say, I need some time or I need space. We definitely see more people saying it's okay to say no.
Yeah, that's true, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, another fantastic session. I know we've got some people that are loving the session, getting off because next meeting, stress.
Yes.
But Ruvi, thank you so much for sharing all of your best practices with us today. And for those of you, hopefully if you need the tools, we have them for you. So feel free to join in on the program and let us help you navigate through these stressful times. But Ruvi, thank you again very much. It's always an honor and a pleasure to work with you. And thanks again for sharing your wisdom with the CWC family this week.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks.
Tammy. Thank you.